Okay, why don't you start us off, Paul? We have lots to talk about and bring us up to date.
Okay. Start with a remote lab. It was rebooted last night after a little bit of struggle, and brings it up to the latest version of Unraid, which should have no effect on anybody, hopefully. Yeah. Also, I've been working with Michelle on trying to get some of the Neptune HDL cooperating with us to do what we think it ought to do and trying to get a full understanding of what it is we need it to do. I'm sure Michelle will be able to give more detail on that. And the other big activity here, which you can see over my shoulder there, is kitting up our bit bangers, but that's not FPGAs, so I won't say too much about that.
It
I
has been
think,
a big effort. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the effort for Neptune is heavily involves remote labs and our our software at this point. So what we're doing is learning how to use MathWorks, the maker of MATLAB, and all the toolboxes. And the particular toolbox we're trying to leverage is HDL Coder. So this takes MATLAB scripts and simulate models and turns it into hardware descriptive language. And we're making a lot of progress. So we'll talk in detail about that tomorrow at the Neptune meetup. But it has heavily used the remote labs and tested our abilities to try to figure out how to turn models and take model thinking and simulations into hardware descriptive language. So it's just one of many ways to make things happen over the air. So the goal is to make things happen over the air and getting closer every day. So yeah, that's been a big deal. And yeah, thanks for the update about Unraid. Do you want to describe for people who don't know how we use the Unraid server? Maybe just give a quick overview on what it is that Unraid does for us.
okay. In the remote lab, you would normally expect to see rows and rows of computers with each one with its own little job. Uh, some would be doing software development, some would be controlling pieces of hardware, uh, others would be connected to test equipment and so forth. Most of them would be sitting idle most of the time. Uh, we would so instead of doing that, we put in one big powerful Windows based, well, Windows like computer running a special version of Linux called Unraid, which is designed to be a media server or a network attached storage sort of device, but it's one of its primary modes of operation is virtual machines. And so we have spawned off a number of virtual machines to do these little jobs that individual computers might have done. Um, you probably heard us, we'll hear us mentioning, if you haven't already, um, names like Chaco Cat and Karapi, which we've used to identify the individual virtual machines. So these are set up for remote use. So you don't have to be here to touch the equipment to use them for most purposes. Um, this is not fully automated. There's no little robot in there that can move cables around or turn knobs, but all the test equipment that's connected to it is remotely controllable, and it's possible to do a wide variety of things fully remote from anywhere in the world, as long as you have a halfway decent internet connection. So that's the basis of the remote lab. Uh, if you'd like to hear more chit chat about it, there's a video, uh, which I think is linked from the ORI website, um, in which I describe a little bit more about the purpose of the remote lab and how and show a tour of the hardware.
Yeah, I'll make sure that gets into the show notes. Yeah, thank you. That I think that brings everybody up to date. Okay. All right. Anything else from your end?
Um, Not that I can think of.
Okay. Thank you so much for all of your help and your support. All right, Ken, you have the floor. What have you been doing? What do you have planned? Do you have any roadblocks and need any resources?
Looking at still this wrapper for the polyphase filter, the flow control. I looked at the blocks that you pointed to. They're AXI and beginner, and the wrapper as it stands, it's interfacing to non-AXI peripherals. So there is a conversion process. I'm actually looking at the clock rate right now to see if flow control is even really expected here, because just given the data rates, and I think the system clock that we'll be working with, I don't think we'll actually see back pressure, which would simplify things. But yeah, I don't know that I can use that AXI and beginner directly. I may have to adapt it. Any sort of bus sizing like that, it gets complicated quickly when there's flow control. So I have to watch it in terms of complexity, just trying to keep things simple. Let's see. There's some parameters with the polyphase filter that I was trying to research what the correct parameters are. One's called the averaging length, AVG underscore length, and it seems to have to do with maintaining dynamic range. It runs a filter on the inputs. The test bench recommends, well, the test bench has it set to a particular value that seems reasonable. I'm probably just going to keep that. The other parameter is something called packet length, which I believe is supposed to cover, basically the cycle of the inputs as you step through them. So going, as your input multiplexer steps across the 64 channels, and then the taps, the depths of the taps for each filter. I think that which basically and also the test bench is setting it to 1024, which happens to be the 64 filters times the 16 taps. I think that's the right value to set it for, but not totally sure about that, but I'm trying to figure that out too. So gonna probably keep those default values from the test bench, and basically those are hard coded inside the wrapper. They're brought out as parameters from the polyphase, but at some point we need to buy them off. There's some other parameters that you can config through a register interface, but I don't think that's needed. It has to do with coefficients and so forth for the filter. So yeah, and I was just as part of that exercise was reviewing the GRC-Con paper that the Theseus course closely used to. There's not a whole lot of source developed, but I'll hopefully make some good progress here in the next day or two. So that's it.
Okay, yeah, thanks. That sounds like a lot of good investment in understanding what we're doing.
Yep. Basically, crafting the design for factoring in the actual particulars of what our data rate are, what the sample rate is, what the data path data rate is, and what if those are in fact reasonable to go with, and we should be able to kind of rely on the fact that the samples are coming in at a particular rate, and that implies certain aspects of like the multiplexing as you go down the receiver pipeline. So
Okay, is there anything are there any resources that you need, or anything that you that you've hit that you can't solve over the next week?
no, I appreciate Paul helped me get back online. I had kind of had I'd set up the ChocoCAD environment at one point and kind of forgotten the steps, but I was able to retrace my steps with some guidance from Paul, so I was able to get back once that server got reconfigured. So I'm happy again.
Yeah, remote operations are always there's always an additional layer of complexity and things that you got to do. And just speaking for myself, if you the setup for remote labs, like you do a configuration like for either WireGuard or SSH, and then you don't have to touch it every time. Things that you don't have to do every time, you can forget how to do them, or they go away. So it's a learning process, and we're actively trying to develop a more efficient and better way of doing it. So any feedback that you have about problems getting connected to the lab would be really appreciated. We'd like to know.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think in the documentation for the remote setup, clarifying that you're actually assigned a number, and where to find that would be good. Paul steered me to the right point, but just I think I had forgotten. Once I saw the file, I remember editing that, but yeah, just for it's all there. It's just making it more for dummies, I guess.
It's hard to cover everything without the document being so big that no one will read it. That's the error. We sort of erred in the direction of being comprehensive now, so it's hard to know which thing to look at.
Yeah, and sometimes I get flipped around, about what, if we can be more direct on like what's a ChocoCAD config and what's on your desktop. That sometimes I get just because I think, it's one of those things that I think some people are well versed in this sort of thing and have experiences, so it's kind of naturally go to, oh, that's a client side config that they're talking about. So it's like I say, it's all there in the documentation, is just maybe making it more dummy proof in my case. But I appreciate your help in getting me set back up. So
Maybe think about some kind of video and a chalk talk about how the network works. Maybe that would be helpful. It's complicated enough that you don't really want to absorb it all. I'm trying to make it possible to use without understanding it. Um, just because networking is notoriously full of ins and outs, so to speak.
yeah, and this is the sort of thing, it's you set it up once in a blue moon, and then it's not something you're doing every day. So it's like, okay, what did I do 3 months ago? And once I come across the files, it's like, oh yeah, I remember editing that. But anyway, it's a minor complaint. I'm happy to be back up. So it's really on me. I should be remembering and writing these things down, but yeah.
Lab notebooks. Lab notebooks are the secret to keeping this track of this stuff.
Yeah. I have some little crib notes, but remembering where I squirreled those away too is another issue.
This
There
is
you
not a
go.
lab notebook.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And we'll see what we can do. I'll help all that I can too. I know that working remote like this is different than having it on your desk. So we're trying very hard to make it as good as possible. All right, so we have increased interest in demonstrations. So our big demonstration for this next year will be at DEF CON, and that's in Las Vegas. It's a hacker researcher technical conference. And we have a really nice opportunity at RF Village, and we'll be back. This is assuming that RF Village will be back. That's a pretty good bet. We have plenty of space and lots of things to show off. We've been invited to come to Microwave Update in early October. So I put a link in Slack about that, and I put us in for a speaking slot. And they usually have a demo room. So it's a bunch of tables with a bunch of people doing work very similar to us, and in general very friendly towards what we do, which is very nice. So I went ahead and put in for that. It's in Vancouver this year, which puts us really close to being it's the hometown of at least one of our board members, and multiple people from other groups that we work with will be there. So in terms of like demonstrations and showing off the work that we're talking about doing in meetings like this and making progress on, DEF CON and Microwave Update look like really good opportunities for us. And with Microwave Update being in October and DEF CON being in August, that's far enough apart to where those two demonstrations will be different. So we'll get an opportunity to show some progress through summer and fall. There's a large show in I believe it's in September in Paris. This was a show that the ESA geosynchronous satellite folks, Frank Zeppenfeld, who gave a presentation about this funding opportunity from the ESA. So we're involved with this in that we have written to Frank and we've told him what we do and provided essentially our technical support package directly to him. And we've also provided it to all of the AMSAT groups that we work with, which is AMSAT DL for Germany, AMSAT UK, United Kingdom, and AMSAT Canada. And all three have submitted their particular projects to the ESA as well. None of us have heard anything back yet. And I went ahead and put us in for a potential speaking slot at this Paris event. As of today, no one has any funding to go to attend the event. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the back burner until we start hearing back from the ESA about the direction that they'd like to go in. It's about 100,000 euros funding, which is in the ballpark of like a phase 1 NSF type of grant. And so it's probably like, okay, here's a sort of a preliminary design, a really good like a PowerPoint presentation, some sort of design exploration. That's sort of at least what I'm looking for to come out of this process. So as of today, we're very interested in supporting this, and if people like Peter Goltza from AMSAT DL were going to attend, then it would be a high priority to go and to work with them, because this is the sort of designs that we do and the sort of work that we've supported with both technical and regulatory efforts. But so far, nothing to report from the effort. But lots of really good contacts have been made over the past couple of weeks to months, and it's really nice to see this sort of thing from the ESA. It would be even better if we saw something similar from NASA. So we're going to start maybe asking some questions and reaching out to people at NASA to see if they might want to do something similar here for North America. Now, AMSAT Canada is included because it's and deliberately included. Frank made it clear that Canada was invited to participate in this process. But I would expect that any sort of mission from the ESA would probably be over continental Europe, or would be over on that side of the planet. So something similar to this initiative here for North America would be great. So with a little bit of help from folks from NASA and other related organizations and maybe some companies, we're going to start asking some questions and see if we might be able to get a similar initiative for here. And we have we're going to be talking with Open Source Satellite Team. They're a UK based team. I've spoken about them a couple of times on the list, on our mailing list, and linked to their website. They have a monthly workshop or presentation. We've presented our regulatory work there before. We've been invited back to talk about our technical work coming up here in the new year. And what we do here in this particular meeting for Hyperia and for Neptune as well will be appropriate to share. So I'm really looking forward to that. There'll be some conversations about that over the next couple of weeks. And several other invitations for regulatory work that will help things along and keep open source digital radio, especially in the microwave band for satellite and terrestrial work going. All right, that's it on my end. Any questions or comments or anything that's needed over the next week?
Well, I can say that with a little bit of extra luck, we might actually be shipping our pit bangers this week. So it's been delayed a couple of days by a component that didn't fit the way it was supposed to, which we were lucky enough to discover before shipping. So would have been shipped today if not for that.
Yeah, thank you. That was good thinking, good instincts, and good experience to go ahead and build up a kit and find the issue. And yeah, looking forward to that. That'll be a really nice thing. We'll share the news in the newsletter and on the list. All right, everybody. Let's I'll see you on Slack if you need anything at all. I'm here, and looking forward to meeting next week and sharing the progress that we're going to make over the next week.